from Infinity Learn. I am Maithili Aburi, your zoology faculty from Infinity Learn. And here we are with another exciting session. We are going to do animal kingdom today, which is phylum Cnidaria and Ctenophora. So these are the two phyla that we are going to cover. Since Ctenophora is a minor phylum, I am just going to club these two. And you already know, if you're a repeater, that there are a lot of similarities between these two phyla, right? So that is the reason why we are doing both of these together today. So as usual, I come up with some fact with regard to the session that we do. So Great Barrier Reef is the largest coral reef in the world. Such a beautiful place, right? The Great Barrier Reef of the coast of Australia is such a not just aesthetic, it is very, very ecologically important habitat which is getting fast destroyed because of many malpractices by humans. And what has got this to do with our phyla that we are going to discuss today? Phylum Cnidaria. Right? Some of the cnidarians, they form corals, have a skeleton which is composed of calcium carbonate. Within your NCERT text, you find this meandrina example, which is a brain coral, which looks like a human brain, which is why the common name, the brain coral. So the exoskeleton of these organisms is made up of calcium carbonate, which is the coral, which actually forms this Great Barrier Reef. The extended exoskeleton of these organisms is what you see, and it's a ecological hub where there's lots and lots of species diversity that you find in such areas, right? So there we start with phylum Cnidaria, a very, very important concept for your NEET as well, polymorphism. As I always say, poly is many. Yeah, I see some of them saying hi, hello everyone, good to see some of you, right? Very nice to see you all, right? Polymorphism is one of the important features, and as I was saying, from the very word, you guess the meaning. So what is poly? Poly meaning many, morph is the form. So basically, I translate into simple words, it is many forms. Each organism existing in different forms is the reason why this is referred to as polymorphism, right? So this is one organism which exists in different forms. It's not monomorphic. It doesn't exist in a singular form. It's a polymorphic organism, of which couple are discussed here, which is the cylindrical form or the polypoid form, and the umbrella shaped one, which is the medusa form. Remember, very important for your NEET questions as well as far as this polymorphism concept is concerned, right? So it exists in different forms, of which I said there are a couple of them that we are discussing here, which is a cylindrical shape, which is usually sessile, which is not moving, right, which is the polypoid form. On the other hand, we have the umbrella shape, which is the free swimming form or the medusoid form. Not just these, but there are other differences as well between these two. For example, this may be in solitary or colonial in terms of its habit. That means it lives as a single organism, solitary, or it could be in groups, which is colonial, right? On the other hand, these are usually solitary in nature. These are having mouth here in a little extension there, which is what is referred to as hypostome. That's where the mouth is located. On the other hand, in the medusa form, there is this at the end of manubrium. So that structure is referred to as manubrium. End of it is the mouth. So the location of the mouth is also one difference. Then mesoglia, the region that's in between, I'm going to discuss shortly, the body wall between the ecto and endoderm. There's a glue-like substance, right? That mesoglia is usually thin in these, thick in these. A structural component is always, most of the time at least, giving a functional advantage to any of the organisms. If you look at, later we learn about the animal tissues also, you will see this kind of correlation. Right here, mesoglia is thicker. Observe that these organisms are free swimming ones, right? So these are the ones which need that buoyancy, which is what is obtained by a thicker mesoglia, right? And nutrition, defense, asexual reproduction is observed in them, sexual reproduction, and dispersal. This medusa forms usually undergo sexual reproduction. On the other hand, the polyp forms usually undergo the asexual reproduction. Take home point from the slide, understand that these organisms exist in many forms, which is what is referred to as, you got that right, polymorphism, right? So cnidarians exist at the tissue level of organization. Remember, we discussed porifera last time, and what was the grade of organization? It was a cellular grade of organization. Now we step up a little bit. Here is one phylum that we are discussing, which is at the tissue grade of organization. Not just Cnidaria, Ctenophora that we are going to discuss today is also belonging to tissue grade of organization. As I told you in the beginning, lots of similarities between these two phyla. One such thing is both are tissue grade organization and both are diploblastic in nature. So what do we mean by diploblastic? There are two primary germ layers, which is the ectoderm, ectome mane outer, and the endoderm, endo mane within, right? So there's an ectoderm and there's an endoderm. There are two primary germ layers, which is why they are diploblastic organisms. They do not have a mesoderm. Instead, as you can see here, there's a glue-like substance right in between, which is what is referred to as the mesoglia. Easy to remember again, meso meaning middle, glia is the glue-like substance, right? Mesoglia is what is present between the ecto and endoderm. Beautifully drawn body wall just for you to understand that, right? And the symmetry. You cut these organisms by any plane of division, but as long as it is passing through the central axis, you get two equal halves. What do we call such a symmetry? We did discuss this before in basis of classification, that is radial symmetry, right? And some of these, because of the presence of certain arrangement of the tentacles, you also find biradial symmetry. So what is biradial symmetry? Two planes of division allow us to get two equal halves of these organisms, right? So that is biradial symmetry is also found in some, like the sea anemones. Adamsia is the example given in your NCERT text, right? So why the name Cnidaria? So very important question. Nettle-like. So these are the plants which are little stinging. Nettle is a plant which is stinging in action. It gives this little painful sting, right? So these organisms also have certain cells which give that kind of a sensation when there is a predator nearby, when there's some organism to protect itself, to defend itself. It's going to release these stinging cells onto them. And that is the reason why these cells, the cnidoblasts or sites that are present in these, give the name, impart that name to the phylum, which is phylum Cnidaria. So these cnidoblasts, again a beautiful drawn picture for you, as you can see in the diagram. So these have a certain kind of poison substance within, which is what is referred to as the hypnotoxin. It has this nematoblast within the cnidoblast or cnidocytes. There's a sac-like structure which is called the nematoblast, which is filled with little of this hypnotoxin. So there is this very sensitive structure which is called the cnidocyl. As soon as this is getting the cue, there's a predator nearby, it's going to pop open that lid, right? And here comes this filament-like structure, which is usually temporarily paralyzing the prey, or smaller ones even killing them. What a beautiful predatory self-defensive mechanism that they have. So not just the defense, it is also helping with the capture of the prey as well as anchorage. So, very, very important, can be framed a neat question. The function of cnidoblasts or cysts is that it is helping with defense, capture of the prey, and it is also something that is helping with the anchorage, right, and the digestion. What did we learn in Porifera? Now, this is one other tip I would like to offer you as we do the lesson. Always, recall the facts about the previous phylum while you're studying this particular phylum as well. Now, that's a very, very important comparative study, especially you should do with the chapter Animal Kingdom, with the non-chordate phyla. Only then you are able to, constantly practice and recall and recollect and remember, right, of the characters of all these phyla. So, what did we learn in Porifera? The digestion was intracellular. And what about this? It is both extracellular as well as intracellular. Same with Ctenophora again. Both these phyla, the digestion is going to be both intra as well as the extracellular, right. So, the first extracellular in coelentron, that is in the body cavity, it is a gastrovascular cavity that is present in them, and then it is going to be intracellular with little cells that are present in the body wall called the nutritive muscular cells, right. The respiration, no particular respiratory structure, it is just their body wall, same as we saw in poriferans also, where the canal system is helping with the respiration. Remember the gas exchange. Here the body wall is only helping with the exchange of gases or even excretion of the ammonia, which happens to be the excretory product in these organisms. Takes in oxygen and expels carbon dioxide just by diffusion occurring through the body wall. Same with Ctenophora also. Neurons. Now, this is another very, very important point. Why? Through the course of the evolution, neurons are something that have made the first appearance in the phylum Cnidaria. As you can see, they form a literally nerve net-like structure. These are usually apolar. What do we mean by apolar? It is something without no axon or no dendrite, right. It is without dendrites or axon, which are non-polarized or apolar, very primitive kind of neurons that are found in these organisms. Remember, Porifera doesn't have any coordination, doesn't have any nervous or sensory cells, unlike the Cnidaria. So, we are stepping up. Cnidaria, for the first time in the course of the evolution, there are neurons that are seen or observed, right. Very important point there. Metagenesis, again very, 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 very important. It's a neat question that is asked previously as well. So, what is this phenomenon metagenesis? It's where these medusa, I already told you while we were doing polymorphism, that this is something that is usually undergoing the sexual reproduction, right. Medusa forms are undergoing sexual reproduction in order to give rise to the polypoid forms. The polypoid forms usually undergo the asexual reproduction in order to be able to give rise to the medusa forms, right. So, this undergoes sexual reproduction to give rise to polypoid forms, polypoid undergo asexual reproduction to give rise to the medusoid forms. And what is this process referred to as? It's called the metagenesis. And good example that we give for metagenesis is the obelia. So, obelia C4 is where you will find this metagenesis. Polymorphism, you find the example of Physalia usually, which is the Portuguese man of war. So, Cnidaria classification not given in the NCERT, just for a little of understanding. There is Hydrozoa, Scyphozoa, Anthozoa. What bases are they divided? Usually there are both polypoid and medusoid forms found in Hydrozoa, like these Physalia, right. Scyphozoa usually have medusoid forms. Aurelia jellyfish is a very, very important example, because the fish is a misnomer. Understand, it's not a fish, it doesn't belong to Pisces, right. Such confusing examples are used again and again in the NEET questions, right. Anthozoa, these are usually the polypoid forms, N number of times you would have seen the sea pen, penatula, sea fan, gorgonia, right? These are some of the examples that are repeatedly given in the NEET test paper. So, right, so those are the examples. Then next we quickly do a perusal of Ctenophora also. If you remember all that we have discussed about Cnidaria, most of the stuff can be applied straight away to Ctenophora, right? So, these are commonly referred to as sea walnuts, coombe jellies or sea gooseberries, right? Common names are also important as far as NEET questions are concerned. So, remember sea walnuts, gooseberries, coombe jellies. The transparent gelatinous unsegmented animals, these are formally referred to as coelenterata. Both of these are formally called coelenterata. Now, we are referring to them as Cnidaria, Ctenophora. Let me give you a couple of other facts about Ctenophora so that it helps you with these correct, incorrect statements. Okay? So, Ctenophora is something which is exclusively marine. In terms of habitat, say for example, in Cnidaria, you will find hydra are some freshwater living ones, right? So, there are freshwater ones, marine ones. On the other hand, if you observe Ctenophora, they are exclusively marine. That means you find all the species of this particular phylum only in the sea, right? So, it is an exclusively marine phylum which you need to very importantly remember. There are certain other phyla also we are going to discuss, like say for example, Echinodermata, Hemichordata, right, the protochordates after we step into the chordates as well. These are all exclusively marine, they are found only in the sea. Not just that, Ctenophora, one more fact is that it is a minor phylum. So, it is important that you remember this also. Now, what's a minor phylum? If there are less number of species included under a certain phylum, we are referring it to as a minor phylum, right. So, this is one minor phylum. Hemichordata that you are going to study later point of time, that is also a minor phylum, right. So, bioluminescence, fascinating, right. You look deep under the sea and there is something glowing there in total darkness, right. So, these are some organisms which do that. These are living organisms which emit light, which is what is referred to as what? Bioluminescence. Luminescence, you know, is light. Bios is life. Life, a living organism that is emitting light. It has got this beautiful property that at the seabed where it is completely dark, the sunlight wouldn't reach all down there, it is in the depths of the ocean, and you see that these organisms are brightly glowing, right. Bioluminescence is an important phenomenon exhibited by the ctenophores, right. These are exclusively marine, as I told you, the solitary and free swimming. Unlike the Cnidaria, there are no forms which are sessile or, you know, which is usually incolonial or something. The diploblastic, you already know what is diploblastic. There are two primary germ layers, ecto and endoderm. Mesoderm is not there, it is not differentiated yet. And there is tissue level of organization, right. So, this is confining itself only to the tissue grade, not to the organ level, which is platyhelminthes next. So, cnidoblasts, what we studied just now, which are present in the Cnidaria, are not present in these. Instead, they have what are called as Lasso cells. These are little glue-like cells, right, which are present usually on the tentacles, right, and they are helping with the capture of the prey, anchorage. So, that is something that is helping with them, the Lasso cells, not given in the NCERT text. So, may not be a possible question, but cnidoblasts, cnidocytes is something that is very important. The body bears 8 external rows of ciliated comb plates which help in locomotion. Here comes another very important NEET question. The comb plates, how many of them are there? 8. These are ciliated comb plates, remember, which are helping with important function, which is what is referred to as the locomotion. So, look at these comb plates that are present in these organisms. These ciliated comb plates are the ones which are helping with locomotion in these organisms. So the gastrovascular cavity is something that's present in both. You have seen that in Cnidaria as well as in Ctenophora. Also recall what was the cavity in poriferans. In porifera or the sponges, it was spongocele, right? The cavity within was called spongocele. Here what are we calling it? Gastrovascular cavity, right? Now what about digestion? It is both extra as well as intracellular like Cnidaria, unlike intracellular only when it comes to sponges. No specific structures for respiration or the excretion, right? So it's just the body wall which is helping with the diffusion or the exchange of the gases. Now this is something that is setting these organisms aside compared to the Cnidaria. What did we observe in Cnidaria? Something called metagenesis. If you recall, there's both sexual as well as asexual reproduction that is taking place. These organisms, they are reproducing only by sexual means. Again, previously given question, very, very important. It is going to reproduce only by the sexual means. The sexes are not separate. Again, during the examination, in a hurry or you are in anxiety and all, most of the time you tend to deep think it, overthink, saying that sexual means so the sexes are separate. So clearly remember, the reproduction is only by sexual means, but it is a hermaphrodite. It has both the sexes within. Fertilization is going to be external, development is going to be indirect. When we say indirect, there should be some larval form involved, right? Sidipid larva. Sidipid larva, in case you know about Cnidaria also, there's a planula larva that is involved, which is why it's a indirect development. Regeneration is quite common in both of this Cnidaria as well as Ctenophora. They have the ability to regenerate. Remember, in sponges also we did discuss the regeneration a little elaborately. You literally mash these, grind these, filter these. Each of the cells have the ability to grow into an entire sponge there. What were those totipotent cells there? Archaeocytes, right? Important, I always tell you that it's important that you learn all the scientific names, at least those that are given in the NCERT text, right? Some example is appearing out of the textbook also. As long as you know the rest of the three options, you always can nail that answer, right? So pleurobrachia, Ctenoplana, Hormifera and Bero. These are the examples. At least the Ctenoplana and pleurobrachia part is something that you need to remember, which belong to Ctenophora. Whether the question is asked about bioluminescence or ciliated comb plates, right? So here is another slide. I just tried to sum up between both the phyla, right? Similarities, both share diploblastic condition, tissue level of organization, coelenteron. They both extracellular as well as intracellular digestion, external fertilization and indirect development. When it comes to unique features, comb plates is something that you will find only in the Ctenophores. Cnidocytes are something that you will find only in the Cnidaria, right? So absence of cnidocytes is something that you will see. Monoecious nature, where you will see that the sexes are not separate. Absence of asexual reproduction, unlike where polypoid forms undergo the asexual reproduction, right? So little quiz there as usual, which we do after the end of by the end of the session. Stinging cells of Cnidaria, I know you are all answering that right now. What is the answer? It is the cnidocytes or the cnidoblasts, right? Bioluminescence is exhibited by, what's bioluminescence again? Living organisms' ability to emit light, natural phenomenon, right? And where do we see this? Ctenophora. All the other cycon, if you look at it, it belongs to sponges, porifera, scypha, right? Physalia, Portuguese man of war, Meandrina, brain coral, they belong to Cnidaria. So pleurobrachia is the one which belongs to Ctenophora and exhibits bioluminescence, right? So the number of cumplates in pleurobrachia are 8. Remember, 8 ciliated cumplates, and what do they help with? They help in locomotion. So locomotion is the process that these cumplates are helping with. Define metagenesis. How do you define metagenesis? The polypoid forms undergo asexual reproduction in order to give rise to medusoid form. The medusoid form undergoes sexual reproduction in order to give rise to the polypoid forms, right? So there is alteration that is seen between these two forms, which is nothing but metagenesis. Meta is secondary, genesis is the production, right? So character not shared by cnidarians and ctenophores is diploblastic condition, is it? Both are diploblastic. Radial symmetry, yes, both exhibit radial symmetry. Tissue grade, also the same. So what is our answer? Asexual reproduction seen only in cnidaria but not in the ctenophores. So there we come to end of another beautiful session where we've done both cnidaria, ctenophora. See you next time around with another phylum, which is the Platyhelminthes. Till then, a very happy learning to all, because learning should be infinite and fun.